Hello everyone and welcome to another live stream. I can't believe we've come round again. I literally can't believe it's another second Sunday in the month because they just seem to be flying past. And over the last couple of times we've looked at painting, spray painting, brush painting. So this time I thought we'd look at masking, but there's loads of other things to talk about. First up, I have to say thanks to Digger, Norm and Timber who are all in chat. They're my moderators. If you do anything naughty, they will stop you. And I will give you a little update on what's been going on, show you my latest work in more detail. It's only a first draft. And yeah, so let's get going. Welcome to everybody who's on and everyone in chat. I've said hello to everybody who's turned up. So where have we got to? So Richard loves spaceships in the swamp too. Thank you. I do like the swamp. It's just over there, that way. Yeah. Hello to Patrick from New Zealand. Nice to have you on. For you, it must be early morning. But you're only 12 hours ahead. Did you not just change your hour last night? Whereas we haven't done it yet. So I think for like 2 or 3 weeks, we're only 12 hours apart. And who else arrived? Oh, James. Hi, James. And Tom and John Bracken. That's the dog, in case you're wondering. We meet in the park to walk round. So yeah, and he promised me chocolates, but we didn't actually make it. Sorry, John. We went to the park, but it was a dog jumped on me and we got muddy, so we walked around the rest of the time on the road, and I didn't see you anyway. So sorry we missed the chocolates, but you never know. I'm sure we'll get them at some point. He's been making chocolates. David is confessing that he ate his pudding without eating his meat first. I really don't see why that's a problem. As a woman, I would leave pudding every single meal if I could, but there we go. In fact, I once went to a restaurant that just did puddings, and you could like starter size mains, but puddings, excellent, wonderful, wonderful. But as a vegetarian for about 4 or 5 years when I was much younger, I often used to eat my pudding without eating my meat. Just to put that out there, James, who's saying that you can't have any pudding if you don't eat your meat. In fact, I prefer meals without a huge amount of meat, but let's not go there. So, what have I been doing, I guess, is the first 5-10 minutes that I want to share with you, because it's been a busy month. My Kickstarter went live at the, 3 or 4 weeks ago. It finished last Thursday. I'm learning from every Kickstarter I do. I learned a lot from this one. I put a lot of work and effort in. There was like modular buildings and complete buildings in the same style, so everything got modelled twice. And I don't think some of the extra work paid off. So I didn't do as well on it monetarily as my previous 2 Kickstarters, which were also very large. So I'm thinking about I've already started on my next Kickstarter. I've literally just got to load the files up on the day it goes live, which takes a few minutes, onto My Mini Factory, and I've got to do the survey actually tomorrow. But apart from that, everything's done on that campaign. It's done and dusted. So I'm just like, So I'm thinking a lot about what I need to do for the next one that's different. And I think I do too much because I get carried away. But then I also put it out for print testing, and Tamsin's one of my print testers, and she'll know. Everybody comes up with loads of great ideas. You should do this, you should do that, you should do the other. And I go, oh, they're all great ideas. And I do a lot of them. But it does mean that my projects get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the trouble with big ones is they get more expensive, which means people are less likely to buy them. So I don't know whether it was a bad time of year, it just wasn't what people wanted, or it just wasn't interesting, or if it just didn't come across well. I'm not quite sure why it didn't really land, but that was my sort of month. Well, actually, I started on it November last year, so it's kind of quite a bit of time, but I'd finished it end of January, and I've just been cruising through February and March really a bit, so yeah. And I see a lot of chat about puddings squeezing past, so let's just have a look. James says pudding is the best part of dinner. I don't normally have a pudding. I actually would quite often just have chocolate over pudding, because chocolate to me is divine, and I could live on chocolate, I would. Tim, I don't know where the restaurant was. I'm really sorry. It was like in my 20s that I went there. And to be honest, I can't really remember what I did last week. So remembering something from 30 years ago is probably less likely to happen. So yeah. Polite says Florida has lost this 1 hour today. It's all right. I'll give it back to them in the autumn. They can have it back in October. Hi to Wolfsec Scenics. I was putting the P on from the last PW, trying to work out what that was. And Dave says, not had pudding tonight. I think there's a chocolate muffin needs eating. Or yeah. I would rather have chocolate than chocolate cake even. But we did actually have some of Dad's birthday cake because he was 80 last week. So just eating up his second birthday cake, because why have one when you can have two? Digger's reminded everybody to hit the like button. There's 45 viewers, it says, and 17 likes. He'll nag you about it. So, you know, as one of my moderators, you should listen to him. And then James, if you want small projects, 3D printed kittens in engaging. I think I just lose them in the bottom of the printer. Tamsin, guilty as charged. I mean, I've got to say, every time I put something out to print test, it's funny what people pick up on. And I'm going to use this as an example. So this is my next Kickstarter. This is the first draft, so it is definitely not the final finished version of a pod racer. And I'm doing pod racing. And there are some things that I need to tweak, like these connectors don't go in properly at the moment. This is too hard to work out. Let me see, there's a power coupling. It's too hard to work out which ones go where, so I need to simplify that a bit. And nobody likes these, they're really test ones to see what it looks like. It's my first one I've done. It's the only quad one where there's going to be 2 stacked high. So yeah, so I actually would like these to be further apart because that's not long enough. So if I put these through this one as suggested, so that they kind of come up on a line, which I can do, so this one holds this one, then I should be able to move this, you know, a little bit further forward, which means I can make this a bit longer so they look further apart. So there's loads of tweaks to do, and then it'll be out of print testing in a couple of days probably. I just like to test print before I put it out. And it's whether people are like, oh, I'd like to use acrylics. So actually having these as straight so they can put in an acrylic rod instead. But this is it. This is my first pod racer. It's based on Ben Quadrineros from the Phantom Menace, if you're not into pod racing. It's going to be called Galactic Racing. And Crix, who's one of the guys, one of my print testers, who always comes up with loads of great comments, he is writing a game to go with it, which looks really exciting. So not only do I have to make it good for printing, I also have to make it good for the game. So, you know, there's some things to think about there. And then finally, just to say on this, let's just put it there, do a little bit of a thing. I haven't worked out what to do here. This is missing a person. So it's sized for a clone from DFD, Darkfire Designs, but I really need to do the people. I don't model people, and I've asked 2 or 3 creators and everyone seems really busy. So I do need to spend a bit of time just working on that one, I think a bit. But you can see that is where it's going to be. And then eventually I'll probably have 2 main bases, probably a rippled sand with a few rocks, etc. And then probably one with a rock in it, and it might be twisting to go around it or something, so that it puts a bit of dynamism in, and I can do it, and you could mirror it if you wanted to flip them. That might be like the first stretch goal is to do the second base, or it might be I do 2 plain bases and then do another sort of tipped one as the first stretch goal or something. So there we go. And it was I hadn't really thought about dynamic posing really, because I was more worried about getting all of these to fit together. And it's quite robust, she says. You know, I can turn it upside down and it all stays together. So that's pretty cool, which I think is what you need. And you know, this was already done, so I'd already designed this piece as part of the first Kickstarter I ever did. And I gave it as part of the workshop edition. So if you've bought the workshop edition, or if you've got the first Kickstarter, you'll have this engine already, split ready, but not with the additions for, you know, mounting it and stuff. And this is in FDM 0.15, so you can see layer lines. But I will do a resin version as well, which will probably have, this is clipped for printing, top and bottom, and it will probably have just a little bit, because the ends haven't printed very well. See there? Well, let's do the whole thing. You can do this. Can I get that to just show? That is a bit rough. No, where are we? That's a bit rough. Just there. So I need to think a little bit more about that. Why is that rough? Is it the seaming? I don't understand why it's rough, to be honest. So I need to just think a little bit more about why that's rough there. I think it might be the seam, in which case I will change where the seam is on it. But there we go. So, haha. Right, I can see people have been chatting. Let's see. Everyone's saying hi. My mother's 84th was on Thursday. Cake next week when I see her. Oh, congratulations to Tim's mother. My mum was 80 last year and my dad's just 80 now. So, you know, it's getting there, isn't it? Richard, I like these pictures behind you, Kathy. Thank you. This is my grey room with black, white and red on the walls. So everything in the room, apart from that one over there, has got, you can't see, has got gold on it. Everything in sort of the walls is white, black and red. So I've actually cleared out both of my king size and the double bed spare were just covered deep in pictures underneath. And now they're full of previous Kickstarter prints. So most of those have gone. So I've got about 50 still to work out where I'm going to put them. But thank you. Digger says he's persistent. He is. It's good. It's a good trait, Digger. James tells Tim that he approves of cake. I actually would prefer chocolate over cake. I know it's not normal, but I would rather have a slab of chocolate than a piece of cake. And I would always choose biscuits over cake. I like the crunch of biscuits. I like the sweetness of biscuits. Cake, not as much. Unless it's chocolate brownies, in which case, different thing. So Norm says the pod racer looks great. He also asks what scale it is. So it's scaled for Star Wars Legion, which is 35 millimeters, which is really annoying if you're like coming from railways like me, because you're like, what does that mean? And it actually isn't entirely clear. And so people do 1:47. I've chosen 1:48 for this. Though to be fair, I'd already done these engines, so they were just scaled. And I've done the sled based off the person. But I did a block out of all of the different available ones that I was going to do, because I'm going to do 8. And I used the scaling from one of the books. I've got 4 books that have got various different blueprints, cross sections, the map, you know, the different areas and stuff. And all the best book I've got is down here, is from the Chronicles. It's got every single one with the people and everything, a little anecdote about them. All of that, you know, I've got sorted. So they're more or less in size with that. But this one I know is longer. But because I want to do inspired by, I do want to make sure that everything is not too close. Close enough to be reasonably recognisable, but not too close. So I've got to come up with new names for them all. And I'll probably do little posters of them, and stuff like that. But if you want to see what I've been doing and that, join my Discord. There's a link, which I'm sure Digger normally puts up for me because I always forget to do it. But you know, there's a link and you can go look at them on Discord, and I've got a channel for pod racing. It's a channel for each of my Kickstarters. And if you want a print test, let me know. I've got 3 or 4 print testers that tend to roll. Sometimes they print a lot, sometimes they don't. It just depends. I think Tamsin will tell you whether it excites them and they want that for themselves or not, as to how much print testing they do. I think a few people are excited about the pod racing, so I'll be doing that. And I'm also going to do it in resin. I need to get it nailed in FDM, which is actually the harder to sort. And then once it's nailed in that, I'll do a version for resin. And people keep asking that this one has acrylic rods. So at the moment these are clipped, so I could technically unclip. It's why they can turn upside down. So if you had this as an acrylic rod, you wouldn't be able to turn it upside down. So I need to spend a bit of time just tweaking things and getting all the ideas there. But I wanted to get one done, get it out for testing, and then get all of this stuff back so that when they're all done, they're fairly consistent. Now this one is a double. It's the only one with a quad. All of the rest of them, and it will probably have to have this sled as a result, but all of the rest of them will be single, just doubles, 2 jet racers on the front of a sled. There we go. So right, Digger says it looks great, splendid details. Thank you. I really struggled with this because I had the pictures, but they're all pictures like this big in the book. That's helpful. Or you get like the wrong angle. So it's really hard to see how the back of it works because you never actually see the back of it in the movie, this one. This one explodes on the starting blocks and goes with all 4 of it because his power couplings fail. Ben Quadrineros, but he made apparently 5 million pegats from it because someone bet him he wouldn't turn up, and he did, even if he didn't get across the start line. So there we go. So Woolsec says, back to chat, I make 2 from scratch once I move into a new home. Brilliant. I'm guessing that is... did you say earlier up? Okay. Anyway, yeah, I have to say it's the 25th anniversary of pod racing. This will probably come out May, June, depending whether I get my act together and get going properly. But yeah, it will be out about May, June. And obviously it's the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace. So for those of you who want to feel old, I was old enough but didn't see the first one in the cinema. But I remember watching it when it came to and I didn't go to the cinema as a kid, so that's nothing unusual. I think I was 6 when it came out. But I did see it when it first came out on TV. I remember making my dad buy a small TV because we were on the canal boat when it aired. And that was 80s, early 80s, 82 or 84 or something. And I don't think I went to see the Phantom Menace. I go through phases of I either went to the cinema or I didn't. And I'm pretty sure I didn't go to the cinema to see any of the original or any of these come through. But I'm going to go and watch it on May 4th when it comes back out again. Even though we only watched it a week ago, because we watched all 3 again. Because why not? Anyway. So, Timber, have you changed gear to resin for this one? This is FDM. This is FDM. So, you know, I think it's a reasonable quality for FDM. I think it will work well. Where you can really see it not working, let me see if I can get that, is on, say, the cones. At some angles, it starts to get liney. You could start to see it a bit more. But, you know, that's just one of the things with FDM. I'm doing it for both because I think for a lot of people, the detail level of these is probably going to be resin. So I'll probably do it in both. I mean, I'm going to do it in both. But I'll do it. I'll do a unsupported FDM one and then a supported resin one. And if you want an unsupported resin one, it's the FDM one, I think. The only trouble is they do clip, and clips don't work in resin really. But, you know, I will make it so you can put acrylic rods in instead if you want. James Pets. Talking of modelling people, can anyone recommend a good place to get 3D models of people made in Make Human, printed to a good standard in a small scale? And then Norm said, James, mini prints. Timber says, James Pets, find a buddy who has one. If you haven't heard of Make Human, by the way, I'm just going to do an excerpt here. Make Human is brilliant. I had it as a separate program, and then I discovered that the latest add-on for Blender, and I'm in Blender 4.0 at the moment, but I think it's also in 3.6. Like, I think it's quite a few versions back. The latest one, because someone I tutor asked about it, actually it's all now in Blender. And you can pick a person, you can change their face details, you can change their muscle, how masculine they look like, how muscly, how male, how female, whether they look more androgynous, their height, everything from like their finger lengths to their nose angle and all that kind of stuff. So you can create a really bespoke human in Blender, rig it, which if you want to do you get it in a T-pose and then you can put the clothes on, which is what I did for my Ahsoka that I did. And then when you've done all of that, they also have clothes and other stuff that you can add in. So it's a brilliant way. It isn't always printable because the Make Human does the eyes as a separate object and they're weird. I mean, it's not the eyes so much, but the mouth is there. It's like a mouth inside, which is obviously because it's made for animation rather than 3D printing. So you have to kind of seal the lips up and get rid of the mouth, or it has a hole where you print, which is weird when the face just goes in the printer. But it's definitely a case of, you know, it's a shortcut. Timber, I prefer a commercial supplier who has one. Okay. Jewel21 says the best of both worlds, chocolate biscuit cake with digestives. I don't think I would just go with biscuits over chocolate biscuit cake still. I'm afraid. I probably would. Timber that says there are many James, just steer clear of shape praise due to cost. So stating the obvious, said had Belgian shoe buns yesterday. Birthday treat. What makes Belgian shoe buns different to other shoe buns? Because obviously shoe buns, I've made them, I've done them in the past. They're like giant profiteroles. I'm just wondering, what is Belgian special? Do they have like Belgian chocolate on them, or do they have like a chocolate filling rather than creme patisserie, which is what you normally have? Haven't had one in a while. I think, you know, I mean, choux pastries, not, you know, it's my mum's favourite. She'd have a chocolate eclair. I probably would go with something with like a chocolate brownie. Not that I sound weird. Digestives always sound like a laxative. Norm, that must be an American thing, because I grew up with chocolate digestives way before, and I knew what a digestive was way before I knew what a laxative was. You know, it was the typical biscuit when I was a kid, along with jammy Dodgers, figgy rolls, and ginger snaps, and Marie biscuits, nice biscuits, the malted milk, you know, custard creams, bourbon biscuits, all those ones. That's kind of there. Neil thought I joined a Weight Watchers channel. No, Neil, I don't think we'd be talking about chocolate and biscuits if it was a Weight Watchers channel. I think we'd be talking about water and soup. But hi anyway, Neil. And then Tim has put a link to a Kickstarter. That's good. Oh, and Digger, thankfully, you've put up my link to Discord, so thank you. You can still late pledge on my Kickstarter on My Mini Factory. The files won't deliver any earlier, but if you go to My Mini Factory, and there should be a link in the Kickstarter project, you can go back and get them on My Mini Factory, and they'll deliver when it goes live for the people who've already backed it on Kickstarter. It's obviously slightly more expensive, but you snooze, you lose. So Woolsec says he watched the first one at the cinema, New Hope. Yeah. David says, lol, I saw the first one at the cinema, saw Phantom Menace at the cinema, as well as the rest I saw on video, TV, streaming or whatever. I mean, since we got Disney Plus, I've watched everything. Every single Star Wars thing apart from the holiday special from beginning to end. James Pence, does mini print ship to the UK? The price is only in the US, right? So they're still talking about their figures, and they don't appear to print other people's models. So, Norm, speaking of movies, saw Dune Part 2 last night. Magnificent. It should be seen in the best theatre possible with Atmos 360 sound system. Wow. I saw the first one. They spent a lot of time packing the house to move. I have read every Dune book, including quite a few of the earlier and later ones by his son and stuff, and they're good, but they get weird really quick. And I know I should go and sit in the cinema, but I just can't summon up the enthusiasm to go, as they've stopped doing matinees, which is when I used to go. So anyway, they're still talking about mini prints, and then try Craft Cloud, and then James Pett, old-fashioned biscuits. I remember old-fashioned biscuits. It's true. For those of us who are old, we do remember old-fashioned biscuits. Oh, James Pett's added custard creams, rich tea. The one I didn't say was rich tea. I did say custard creams and nice biscuits. And the pink wafers. I don't like the pink wafers. No, not a fan of the pink wafers. I do like chocolate wafers, especially Belgian chocolate-covered wafers. But yeah. Tim, for US viewers, digestive biscuits are similar to graham crackers. I thought graham crackers were cinnamon flavoured. Oh well, whatever. Best talk about masking before I show up my knowledge of anything. So we are looking at masking today. Yeah, masking. I was just looking at Norm, who just commented, the first one was sleepy, he's talking about June. The second one, very action-packed with a great story. I think the first part was just so slow it put me off. So there we go. And yeah. So, masking. I'm going to pause this a lot. I've done a couple of videos recently that have masking in, and I was going to talk in more detail. But this one is one I did for my patrons ages ago, and it was when I was doing this boat, which looks well over-cured, may I say, to be that brown, because it's a clear resin. I think I've forgotten left it in there. They look clear now because I'm doing them for a minute or two. And I'm doing masking tape and what we use for masking. So I'm going to talk a bit about that, which will keep us going. There we go. Timber says, Kathy says, keep saying old, but the mods probably have 20 years on her. You might have 20 years on me, but it's my birthday this week and it's another year on. Richard, is this a modelling channel or a biscuits channel? We are just getting to the modelling. But there we go. So they're still looking at print ones. You can 3D print chocolate. I'm not sure you can 3D print biscuits, but those baking things, you'd have to get them a bit hotter, I think, to do them. 3D printed food is a thing, perhaps next month. I think it's I think it's probably a little bit later before they actually, it'd be like a replicator then. So back to masking rather than biscuits. I recommend something like Tamiya masking tape for masking. But I probably should start with why mask? Who asks? When do you mask? What's the point of masking? So by masking, all we are doing is stopping paint from getting onto your model in a certain location. And I meant to put on, and I forgot actually, masking fluids, but they're normally tapes, but you can put masking fluids in. And masking fluids, it's like rubber glue, you know, that kind of Copydex or something. It's very rubbery. You get a brush, you paint it on, and it dries, and then it's there. But it stops. It's more useful for fluid areas. Stops the paint hitting. So masking is all about stopping paint going where you don't want it to. But quite often, I lazily, especially on FDM, will normally spray the whole model the same colour just because it's easier, and then I'll hand paint in blocks or something like the Millennium Falcon Transport Delta that I did. I just hand painted in any sections that I wanted to be a different colour. I'm not that fussed. But when I came to my Titanfall helmet, I'm still working on it, took a bit of a back burner recently, I actually needed to mask out a lot of stripes. When it came to doing my spaceport, one of my most recent videos was painting the spaceport. Again, it came out. I just realised I've got the wrong camera on here, so I'm not here. Let me just. Yes, I want to remove it. I've just realised that. Sorry. Oh, there we go. I'm back. There we go. There's me. Right. I needed to mask. And for the spaceport, some of it was modular. I could just take it apart, spray some bits orange, but some of it was striped, so I masked. So you'll see all of that coming in here. The whole, you know, there's a reason for it. But when do I most use masking is when I'm doing sort of larger sci-fi models that have delineated colours. Now, if you're doing military modelling, you might do camouflage, and I've seen all sorts of things from like humble blue tack, just put across, through to custom cut stencils. I've got some custom cut hex stencils and lines and, you know, all sorts of patterns, like digital camo pattern I've got. And you can literally, they come as pre-cut, I think they're laser cut, sort of masking panels, and you can cut them out and put them on to your model. And then when you spray, you've got a pattern. So masking, absolutely essential for some models. How does it compare to freehanding a line? If there's a raised element in the model, I will often freehand because it's quicker than trying to get all the masking on, because masking takes time. But if I'm doing a model that doesn't have a huge amount of delineation, that I won't be able to just put a brush against something to get a nice straight edge. And to be honest, I mostly model mine to have straight edges that you would be able to paint, but you know, sometimes you're doing other things or the model is just very smooth. Say this, for example. I'm going to make this big again now, or we will not see it. Say this, for example. I wanted to spray this end here, and I want to spray paint it, but I also want to spray paint this in metallic. So I want to do this in a spray painted candy coat red, this in metallic. If I want to spray this, I would spray it all in primer, then I would gloss black it, and then I would spray, say, metallic over it all. And then I'd need to stop the metallic here from getting any candy coat red on it. And so this piece here, you know, these sort of sections here that are staying metallic, and this end, they need to be masked off. So when I spray these, they are basically going to stay in the colour I want. So these will be candy coat, these will be metallic. And the candy coats normally have a metallic underneath to get them the sort of depth that you want. So if I want to do that, I need to find a way of masking. Now this is a bit of a pain, you know, it's got stuff there, but I could just get around here with a masking tape. So I could probably mask this. Now I could hand paint it, but I never hand paint metallics. I always spray paint metallics. I think you get a better finish with lacquer. I use All Clad, though you can't get it in the UK anymore. You have to buy the Mig Jimenez more expensive version because of deals. I believe it's still available in the US. But I would use all clad, and I've got quite a few old ones still knocking around, lacquers. And then I candy coat over the top. And again, you get a much smoother coat with an airbrush than you can paint for some of these types of paint. So masking is when you want to airbrush, probably more than hand paint, or spray paint out of a rattle can. My Titanfall helmet was spray painted with a rattle can. And yeah, I think I've said enough. Let's go back to the video. So James uses that type of masking. This is interesting. Right. So this piece here, I want to put a blue stripe on it, basically, the waterline blue stripe. And this is a smooth resin print. So hand painting that stripe, not going to cut the mustard, not going to work. So yeah, I really do need to do something better. So Norm says, happy soon to be birthday, Kathy. Thank you. Ides of March, that's my birthday. And then they do print cakes in icing. Really? I didn't know that. Davy Jones, hi, welcome test. And Richard is also saying he uses this. I'll get to frog tape in a minute. I will talk about different masking tapes. James says he uses masking fluid for windows. I think it depends on the windows. I used this masking tape for these ones in a minute. Timbersurf, known makes or cheap Chinese alternatives. For what? Tamiya is the standard in Japan for modelling. Yeah, I just use Tamiya because it's actually very easy to get over here. And it does really well. There are other, I suspect, as good versions from people who are emulating the Japanese. This is not decorator's tape, and we'll talk about that in a minute, which is what frog tape is. Frog tape is decorator's tape. It's different. So Tamsin, don't talk about chocolate 3D. I'll get chocolate cravings now. Yeah, I can just imagine a 3D printer made of chocolate, and the first time you put the nozzle to heat up, the whole lot just melts. Edible D&D. Oh, I like your thinking, Davey. James says, canopy glue dries clear, great for windows. I think that's great for small windows, and I think it's really good for old windows. I think for bigger, larger panes, I either go acetate or I 3D print them in clear resin. And Davey says you can use various types of PVA glue, including wood glue. I just find that some of them don't dry totally clear, so you just have to check before you put it on there. And Polite says you can easily combine masking tape and liquid mask. True. James says masking tape is good for stripes, which is common for model railway applications, and actually sci-fi, a lot of stuff like that. I've used fluid on my Titanfall ears. There was one section in the middle of, I don't know why I'm pointing at my ear, it was an ear. So it was a circle and it had a slot in the middle, and the slot has got an LED coming through, and the circle is metallic. So I just kept the slot in clear resin, and that just stopped the metal getting in there. The metal paint, that is. Davey says he's seen people, you can get, Davy Jones says he's seen people work with some kind of putty. You can get modelling masking putties. Other people just use blue tack, which is very simpler, which I think might be poster gum, but easier to remove. Poster gum presumably is blue tack. I'm not quite sure. But blue tack sometimes leaves a bit of a residue. So yeah. Happy 21st birthday. Thanks, Clinton. I wish. Is frog tape the white papery stuff? Frog tape's green over here. It's green decorator's tape. But okay. So Richard says, is Tamiya masking tape the best around? I personally think it's very, very good. So I would definitely, talking about it, use it. So Timber was asking about whether he thought it was as good as the cheap Chinese ones. I've not tried a cheap Chinese one to compare them, but for the amount that I use, the price of Tamiya does not become an issue. So there we go. So this is what Tamiya looks like, and I've actually got two sorts here. And you can see I've got them in multiple sizes. If you're doing stripes, then you having the actual size is really useful, and they come in these handy little dispensers which you can refill. If you also so if you want to do curves or on curved surfaces, the thinner the width, as in the roll, so the 6mm is better than the 18mm because it will curve more easily. There is a specific curved masking tape. This is it. And I have this. I was going to say I don't think I own all of these, and I've realised these must be photos off the internet because I don't own all these widths. It's more plasticky, it's a little bit thicker, but you can curve it more easily because it's plastic rather than paper. And I did use that a lot on my Titanfall one where I was having, well, it's a helmet, so it's all curved. And then we've talked about masking fluids, putties. There's loads of other things if you have, other applications. But here, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it in place. Now, starting with the windows, I get a piece that's bigger. People worry about it sticking too much, and I've never really had a problem with Tamiya. It comes off very easily. So I put it in place, generally using tweezers. And for this, I'm cutting out the windows so that they stay clear. This might be why I over-cured it, actually. I wonder if I over-cured it so they'd be slightly biscuity, or if that was just a mistake. And then you can see I'm using a cocktail stick. I'm buffing it into place, and then I'll go around the outside with a brand new, very sharp blade and cut it so it sits exactly where I want it to. And I want the frames to be white, so I want to cut so that the cut is on the window edge, so that I have a little window frame around it that is white. So there we go. That is the basic technique for doing things like windows. If it doesn't work in the direction you're doing, cut it in the other direction, which is what I was doing now. It's kind of pulling it out a little bit. You do need to make sure that everything is nice and tidy and clean. Just make sure it's all there, and then rebuff it in again. You want to make sure everything gets well and truly sealed around the edges. Now, if you're worried about leakage underneath, people will tell you to spray the first colour you've put on and then, respray the top colour. But this one's clear, so I'm not actually spraying anything on those windows till the end when I could put a gloss varnish on. So I sprayed this white, and then I sprayed it with primer, and then I sprayed it with white. So it's now got a gloss white on it, which is the main colour for this particular boat. Now, I always leave it at least 24 hours, preferably longer, before doing a second mask on top. And this is actually quite a difficult, this was difficult because it's curved at one end, and you end up bunching if you're not careful. And what you don't want is the paint to go into those bunch lines. So you want to smooth everything down as much as you can and make sure everything looks really neat and tidy, and you don't have, you see I'm desperately trying to get that piece out, you don't have any dents, because the paint will go up into them. And if it does, you can touch up a little bit by hand, but if you've done something like a gloss airbrush coat, really hard to match that if you're touching up. So yeah, you spend a lot of time firming it down, using your nail, using back of a spoon, whatever you fancy, getting it all nice and there. Now, I'm not doing huge pieces here, but I don't want the bottom or the top of my boat, which is going to be white, to be covered. Now, at this point, you don't have to use your Tamiya tape. You can sort of use another masking tape, and this is a delicate painter's tape or something cheap. And it won't pull off my paint. My paint's been on a while. It's a lacquer. It's not going to pull it off. But I've used that and a bit of kitchen roll to mask the top out so that when I spray the bottom, nothing can get onto the superstructure that should be white. You want to make sure there's no gaps or holes, because the paint will get through there otherwise, and you'll end up with blue, in this case, where you don't want it. And then I do quite a dust coat. This is the example of not spraying a white first. I could have sprayed a white that would seal this, but you want to do a bit of a dust coat first. Not on too heavily, just enough that you seal that edge, and you're spraying away if you can, away from that, so it's not spraying under the masking tape. You spray it down and away, and then once you've done that, you can go over it again and make a really nice solid gloss coat. And then it's just a case of peeling it off. Now, I see people all the time on the YouTube go, and I love peeling off my masking tape, it's so satisfying. I hate peeling off my masking tape, because when I first did it, I was using acrylics and it would pull off the paint half the time. Since I moved to lacquers, I have not really had it pull off the paint. You can see I had that little bunch there, and there was just a blip in the line. you know, just live with it. It's going under a huge amount of foam and stuff at the end, so it's not really that visible. But this is what you get. You can't hand paint this kind of gloss finish, this beautiful line that this has. So it's really important that you, you know, choose the right type of finish and paint for whatever you want. So this here, you can see I've got a little bit of white came through, and I just scrape that away with my brush, and now I'm spraying it with a gloss varnish because this is a, you know, fairly new shiny boat, and I want to gloss varnish those windows. And then I went round just with a bit of a wash and stuff like that to just even that gap. It's really useful to be able to just draw out the detail that's there and put a little bit of black on. Now, obviously I decided to put mistakes on here, and you can see I'm using tweezers to pull it off, at least at the beginning, a knife and then tweezers, because these are quite small. And you can see that you do get under bleed quite often if you didn't really push it down enough. So it is worth spending the time trying to neaten it up. And for this, where I'm just going down to a resin surface and going to gloss it, a knife is perfect. So there we go. Put a bit of a wash over it. This is probably just an enamel wash out of the bottle, one of the dark ones, that dark wash from MIG or something. And when it's done, it will just hide all of those issues. And there's a little bit of a frame there. So there we go. That is my painted boat. And this was a video from ages ago where I was using, let me pause that, I was using froth, which was woodland scenic snow mostly and stuff. So I talked a lot. Ooh, let's go see what chat had to say. Okay, so I do think something like Tamiya is a lot finer. And we'll talk about decorator's tape in a sec, because that's what we're about to get into. So James says, I use Tamiya and find it good. I've not tried other masking tape except for frog tape when masking for ballasting. Yeah. Woolsec says you can use car masking tape. I've no idea what that's like, I'm afraid, what it's like at all. The thing with Tamiya is it's very smooth. It gives a very smooth edge. I get far more wicking underneath with frog tape or a decorator's tape than I do with Tamiya. Silly putty, says Tamsin, doesn't leave an oily residue. I like the way you think, Tamsin. James says, I've got orange decorator's tapes and maybe not frog tape. Well, frog tape, I've got some frog tape, is an expensive masking tape, but it is just masking tape at the end of the day. And they come in different colours for different delicacies quite often. Oh, and Tamsin says frog tape comes in different colours that indicate the level of tack. So I've got green, I've got blue and orange, and the delicate one's quite good for models. So Norm says, Woolsec car tape is good, very good and not quite as expensive. So it's good to know. Davey, if you want super thin lines, they sell tape for electronics to make circuit boards the old school way with whiting. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that. And they come in fractions of a millimetre apparently. Perfect for lining. If you're going to spray your lining first and then spray your base colour over. Otherwise, you probably would actually use two thicker pieces and the line would be between them, which is harder to get lined up than one piece. David Jones, no flag. That boat's clearly smuggling something. Yeah, the boat was sort of followed up by Tomb Raider diving, which I believe is behind me in a box over there still, diving down to some artefact in the water. So I thought, well, it's got Tomb Raider in it, but I never got around to putting the figures on it. One of the downsides of doing YouTube videos and trying to get them out really frequently is quite often some of the stuff that you're like, oh, I didn't do a figure. Oh, well, no one will notice. She's inside. You know, you just end up not doing things. But I like Richard's idea of smuggling biscuits. So we've talked about doing small models, resin models, fine models, and I definitely would use Tamiya. When it came to doing my big helmet, or when I'm doing these spaceport models that have got FDM lines on them, I'm not going to waste my expensive Tamiya on that. I really am not. This just isn't worth it. It really isn't. So for this, I use normal masking tape. Now this is frog tape. Is it frog tape? Yep, it says frog tape on the inside. So this is green frog tape. And I'm using it to mask. Now, I don't think it's as smooth. If I had had the sense, which I didn't, I would actually have sprayed white then orange. Or I might have sprayed grey, which is the base colour, to seal the edge, then white to make it brighter than orange. As it was, I just sprayed a couple of orange coats. It's quite a runny paint, it's quite a thin paint, and it was just rattle can. So this works as well for rattle cans. And yeah, it did run in a couple of places underneath. And on some of these, I just didn't quite get the kitchen roll to cover every gap. So there's one or two oversprays as well. But you can see, for bigger things, frog tape works really well and is much more cost effective. You can use other decorators tapes, but just be warned, the cheaper ones are not as good. And they can get too sticky. If they're too sticky and you're worried about your paint pulling, put them on your jeans. Not anything with long hairs on, nothing with like loads of fluff, but something like jeans that are quite firm. Put them on your jeans or put them on your worktop if your worktop's clean, and pull it back off again. And then that masking tape just loses some of its tack when you do that. So it's not quite as sticky. Tamsin says, smuggling proper European chocolate into the US. I went to a US board meeting for the NMRA and I took over bars of Cadbury's. And they were like, wow, this is amazing. We've never tasted anything like it. And Europeans would think Cadbury's is nothing. But for me, I grew up on Cadbury's, so it's my favourite chocolate. And they were literally just like, wow, this is so amazing. And then I said to one of them, you do know Hershey's is made with sour milk. It's milk that's gone off that they put into it. And I won't touch it because it smells awful. And I just look at Hershey's chocolate and the taste is disgusting. And they were like, we didn't know that. We can smell it now. So I'm thinking, Americans just, I'm sorry you don't have Cadbury's. Can I apologise? You do not have Cadbury's and you have missed out. It is much better than Hershey's. In my view, obviously, as a Brit. And Cadbury's is made just down the road from me, or was. I think it's in Poland now, so, you know, whatever. But no, Hershey's, yeah. I didn't even know they did a yellow frog tape Jaw 21, I'm afraid. So no, I don't. I think this is green, which is delicate. I think I've got some blue. I mean, I use whatever's there. I might have a box, because the frog tape comes in a plastic container as well. I may have a yellow one, but I'm not sure I've got to it yet, if that makes sense. I tend to buy over the cheap stuff off Amazon for the extra bits, not the actual neat bit, but like I did with the Tamiya, I put a more expensive one close and then use the cheap blue one from Amazon, which is literally just blue masking tape. It's nothing that great to stick on any bits further away that are less crucial. Chocolate was invented in Belgium. I actually don't know. I mean, chocolate was a drink first, and I think that came over to England as a drink. I don't know, I mean, it probably went everywhere at the same time. I remember Sir William Raleigh did potatoes, but I don't remember who brought chocolate back. But chocolate was a drink before it was added to the cocoa solids and became an edible. So it'd be interesting to see, because people say Cadbury's doesn't have enough cocoa solids to technically be chocolate by European standards, but you try telling a Brit it's not chocolate and there we go. Dave Jones, the Yanks got lucky with pizza once, not going to happen twice. If you ever have pizza in Italy, it's nothing like pizza in America. Yeah. Richard C, how many colours are there? Oh, I don't know. I think there's 4 or 5. Norm says, we have Cadbury's all over the place getting ready for Easter. But the Cadbury's in the US is actually, I think, a slightly different formulation. And you find this. The Cadbury's in the UK is made for a cold weather country. And so it isn't as firm and it melts at a slightly lower temperature than the Cadbury's for hot weather countries. So I think the Cadbury's in Canada is different to the Cadbury's in sort of, say, the southern United States, and maybe even just the whole of the United States. So I do think, because it's made in the US, it's not quite the same. So when I brought over my UK bars, people thought they were nicer than, well, definitely Hershey's, but whatever else they'd had. So I do wonder whether we actually have a different Cadbury's in Europe to the US. Somebody might know. Tammy says it's the butyric acid, the vomit smell taste. Oh, it's gross. Russ Rocky no Cadbury's is very tasty. Davey says Cadbury's is good. George says yellow is for delicate. Tim says Cadbury's is still made in Bourneville. Sometimes I can smell. I live on the old canal wharf. On you. Wow. I thought you lived up further north than that, Tim. Okay. I used to go to school in Edgbaston, so Cadbury's just down the road from where I went to school. And Bourneville is actually my favourite after plain dairy milk. So Timber knows the answer to the colours that you want for your frog tape. Green is multi-surface, yellow for delicate surface, orange for gloss and satin surface. So there we go. You can buy to match. I've found green has been fine for FDM prints, which don't have a particularly fine surface. Russ Rocking, we have the famous Cadbury bunny. Yeah. Okay. So Davey says chocolate was originally invented by the Aztecs, whose drink made from cocoa beans. Yeah. Richard says, gosh, it was biscuits. Now we're talking about pizza and chocolate. And we normally talk about vintage sci-fi, so this is actually a change. And we have got some masking in there as well. So David James says, a Belgian guy called Drost invented a machine to press out the oil from cocoa beans, allowing for the creation of what we call chocolate. Good to know. John says he went past the Cadbury's factory in Wales last year, and the smell of chocolate was very nice. The Cadbury's in America is made by Hershey's. Okay, not the same. Davey says, I don't know about Cadbury's, but McDonald's and sodas are different because they use different ingredients. Most of the stuff that McDonald's sells in the US would not be allowed for sale in the UK. So if you look at our children's meals, I think in America you get chocolate milk. Over here you have to have organic milk. And you generally have fruit juices rather than sugary ones. And there's definitely big differences. So all of the beef is organic and it's more solid in the UK. It's a bit more ground, I think. It's just a slightly finer texture in the US. Definitely is different, very, very different if you go between the two. For McDonald's, that is. And sodas, you have so much high fructose corn syrup because you produce it. We try not to put high fructose corn syrup in things because we don't produce it, so it would probably be shipped from you, which makes it expensive. So we tend to put just more plain sucrose and stuff in. I mean, the other thing was, I love Pepsi Max. I refuse to have it now because it made me ill. But cherry Pepsi Max is my all-time favourite. The US don't even have Pepsi Max. You have Pepsi Zero, and I think I saw it in one supermarket. But Pepsi Max is one of the biggest drinks here. Like, almost everybody has it. So it is definitely very different. We also don't have Mountain Dew or any of those. James, when I was growing up, my parents' house was in smelling distance of the Mars factory. I've heard that Mars bars come out very different in texture when they're first made, and they have to sort of set up a bit before they're sold. So, right, we better stop chocolate and get back to modelling in a sec. US chocolate also has a much lower cocoa solid percentage, says Tamsin, and Cadbury's is low. Hi Monique, you have come into the chocolate and biscuit chat, I'm afraid. So Tim, people know so much more than me about chocolate, can I just say. US law only requires chocolate to have 10% cocoa solids or cacao solids. In the UK and Europe, the law requires 20%. Yeah, and Davey has said sodas are made with sugar in Europe, but America uses corn syrup. Timber says Galaxy tastes of toffee to me. I don't dislike Galaxy, but it doesn't taste of chocolate to me. John, who has been making chocolate eggs, he read something online once that Cadbury's taste different around the world due to them using local milk and different additives. There are definitely additives for the temperature, your average temperature of your country. David, what the hell has chocolate got to do with masking tape? Yeah, we had a brief discussion about it, partly because I'm just playing a video in the background of me putting masking on so that people can see how to do it. So I don't really need to talk about what I'm doing because you can see that I use, I press it down well and I put it in place and then I use a bit of kitchen roll over the top. So we're really filling time looking at chat and they all want to talk about chocolate because, yeah. Hershey's and Cadbury's are both owned by Kraft. I just think if you tried to sell Hershey's in the UK instead of Cadbury's, there'd be a mutiny. Chocolate flavour masking tape. Do you know, I'm sure... if you ever watch them make the chocolate creations on some of those food channels that used to be all the rage a while ago, they actually make them onto acetate and then bend them and stuff. And I'm sure you could learn a lot from modelling from those techniques. Lol, I'm not American, says Davey. It's hard to tell where people are from. I would say Davy Jones is a very American name. I don't know why. It's either that or it's Welsh, but I wouldn't spell Davy that way for Welsh. Thread drift. Giant ball monster that put so much corn syrup in things because they want people to get ill. I'm not getting into the politics of it, but I do notice that food in America is far sweeter than food in the UK. And our food is far sweeter than it was 50 years ago, but much less salt. We put a lot less salt in than America and from 50 years ago. So we've got more sugar, less salt, I think, in our food. Right. Norm, I think, has summed up the chocolate. We have the chocolate bars. That's a bar on chocolate. I think we've talked enough about chocolate because we definitely are off on a massive tangent here. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more about special cases for masking. And I didn't put the video up in the end for my helmet because it hasn't actually gone out on YouTube yet. So it's not edited or anything. But when I was doing my helmet, I wanted to do a griffin logo on the side of my helmet, which is a curved thing. And I tried using a Brother Scan and Cut, which is like a Cricut or Cricut or however you pronounce it. And I put the masking tape on, I stuck it down, and I tried to cut out the masking tape. And all it did was pull it off the backing, which was like wax paper. So you can buy masking tape sheets, and I was thinking this was a really good way of getting masking tape to work. So I think if you stuck the masking tape straight onto the cutting mat, you probably could then cut it, but if you leave it on wax paper, you couldn't. So instead what I did was I used a vinyl. So you can get stencil vinyl, which is adhesive, and it's a bit thicker though. It really did struggle a bit, if I'm honest, with the curves on the helmet. So I ended up moving pieces a bit to just do them by hand. But you can easily get a cutter, or you could send it off for laser cutting if you really wanted, and then you could probably use proper thin masking tape sheets. And you can cut out something like a logo and then use that as a mask. And I've used it a lot. I used it on Severna Spaceport, which is on the floor over there. I've used it, this sort of vinyl sort of craft cutter type machines. It is thicker, you put it on, but it works really well. The only problem is, because it's a transfer tape, you have to get it on and off, and the same with the masking tape. If you cut it, you want to put it on, and they have this transfer tape. So you have your vinyl, which is on a plastic backing, you know, like a grippy enough to hold it for the cutter, but not enough you can't peel it off. You cut it, which doesn't go through the backing, so you have to get your settings right. Then you put a transfer tape over it, peel off the bits you want, weed out the bits you don't want, and then put the transfer tape with the plastic stencil underneath, and then you peel your transfer tape off. So it's a bit long-winded, but it does work really, really well. So yeah, that is another technique for doing complex logos. I've actually even tried 3D printing logos. Just do 1 or 2 layers, and then if it's a flat surface, you can kind of tape it down a bit and use it to spray paint a dry dust coat and then a wetter coat. But there we go. It's definitely, there are many different ways to do masks. And if you look back through my videos, you'll see them occasionally popping up as different ways. And I will get the Titanfall helmet video off, but ironically, the next thing I need to do is a bit more masking and decaling. Mostly decaling, I think. But I might need to just spray a few extra bits. And because it's decaling, I hate decaling, so it's not been there. But yeah, that's basically what we're doing. So this is basically running through the same building from 2 shots. And this is, this is not rocket science. So when you watch me, so I'm actually going to pause it now because it is literally just the same thing again. So when you look at that, you can see literally masking is about smoothing it down all the time and making sure the paint can't overspray any way you want it to. And airbrushes do overspray quite a bit if you're not careful, especially when you're doing thicker big coats on stuff like this. So that's masking that I use. And just to summarise, for straight lines, tape. For anything else, you can buy ready cut stencils, ready cut pattern stencils like hexes and digital camo. You can buy masking putty, or you can use blue tack, poster tack, whatever you call it. You can use anything. If we think about it, when we're doing weathering, you often see the salt technique where people will spray a bit of water and then they scrunch on a bit of salt or washing soda or whatever it is. Then they spray it and they take the salt off and the colour that's underneath comes through as like worn chips. It's a really common technique in weathering. And that actually is just masking. You're just masking using salt. So you spray a brown coat, you mask with the salt, you spray your proper colour, you take your mask off, scrub it with a bit of water. So the masking is just literally blocking paint from getting onto a surface, and then you take off whatever the masking item was. Right, let's go back to chat. Right, oh, Monique's still on chocolate. Cadbury lowered their cocoa content in the New Zealand, so got banned by many residents. There's a local chocolate maker here that boomed because of it. Sadly, I really like Hotel Chocolat, and they just got taken over by Mars, I think. It's so unhealthy, they shouldn't be doing it, yet they insist. I'm guessing that's adding high fructose corn syrup. Fascinating, high fructose corn syrup goes through a different metabolic pathway in your gut than sucrose. I think it goes through the liver, where the rest goes through the pancreas. So it does cause different issues. Yeah, bar on chocolate. I did intend a pun, actually, Timber. David Jones, well, we didn't even talk about the religious aspect of chocolate yet. Well, I certainly... Yeah, okay. I sometimes think it's quite a divine moment, but yeah. Tandy says UK bread used to have a lot of sugar. It's gradually been eliminated a little bit, time to virtually nil. Yeah, it's like most cereals and stuff. So Davey has got us back onto the modelling chat. He's bought a Brother Scan and Cut for that kind of stuff and hasn't gotten around to using it yet. I hardly use mine at all, but when I want it, it does stuff that nothing else can do. And I've even used it to cut wood, which was interesting. But yeah. So Russ Rocky ORR, new formula of Scotch Blue is terrible. Mass steps on my porch. I came back half an hour later. It rolled up and off the surface. Never had that problem with the older formula blue tape. I find I've got a set of cheap blue tapes off Amazon and they literally don't even stick to themselves. So Clinton says, I'm in New Zealand. The only time I didn't like cabbages is when they changed to palm oil. I don't think they've done that here yet, but that might just be about local produce availability. So James, I've just placed an order for the teeny figures from Craft Cloud. Thank you for that recommendation. And that was to Timber Surf. So there we go. He's got his little teeny figures that he'd done in Make Human. Dodgy Diorama says, I often cut frisk on the Cry cut. Works well. Frisk. Okay. Right. What's frisk? Sorry. What is frisk? Right. David Jones, I'm in the Netherlands. It's like the Mecca chocolate. That is very true. You know, and I love Belgian chocolates. I love Belgian chocolate biscuits. I'm a big fan of them. I'm also a fan of Cadbury's when I want a block of chocolate. But to me, it's like, it's like porn for women, having chocolate descriptions. You know, it's a voluptuous enrobed chocolate coated centre. I get very excited by reading the descriptions and knowing what it is. Yeah. Richard is sticking to masking tape as I'm allergic to chocolate. So he goes, oh, my life would be over if I was allergic to chocolate. Probably lose a ton of weight as well. Do you ever print your own water slide decals? Short answer to that, yes, I have. I have printed my own decals. It did not, I did them when I had access at work to a laser cutter. I've since tried them at home with my inkjet and it has never worked as well. Just never worked. I don't know if I've just got the wrong paper. It says it's for water slide decals. But what the biggest problem I find, and the reason I rarely print my own now, is you actually need to be able to print white for most decals, and you can't print white on home printers. So you end up then having to paint white under where you want the decal to go to get the white, and somehow it just seems like a lot of work. So I have so many decals. I mean, I have 1,000 New Haven decals that I've still kept because they've got, you know, useful letters and stuff on them. I've got them in gold, I've got them all sorts of colours. I've got loads of bought ones, sci-fi, and you can get sheets of Gundam ones that are really great, you know, some really, really great sci-fi ones. So I just try and go and find the right ones in the 2 really useful A4 boxes of decals that I've already got, rather than doing my own. When I wanted to do one for the lat, I used this I think it was Woodland Scenics paper, micro scale paper or something. It's one of those. It's an American brand, and it said it was for inkjet, but it just didn't print. So I bought some off Etsy. Davey agrees with me. Being allergic to chocolate is awful. So Tim says, I've got some waterslide paper in stock for doing my own, purchased about a year ago, but I haven't actually gotten around to making any. Tips. It is on the to-do list. Richard says, give me a bad migraine. So I gave up everything because I was having so many headaches. And actually they improved the most when I gave up red wine and whiskey. So I went TT and I've had a lot fewer. Don't tell, I still get loads of headaches. But I get a lot fewer than I used to. So for me, definitely red wine. But yeah. Davey says, I've experimented with it a bit, making your own water slide. I'd love it, but actually I don't really, you'll notice that I rarely decal. Partly it's a time thing, partly it's because I'm doing FDM, and I think decals need to go on a smoother surface than FDM. You know, trying to put them over layer lines, you just get the silvering underneath of the layer lines, so I often don't decal when I know I should. I would decal a plastic kit, but most of the plastic kits that I buy come with the decals included, or I would decal a like a resin print perhaps, but I rarely do. It's the last 5% that never gets done because of YouTube, sadly. Yeah, but I'm glad it worked well for you because it really didn't for me, and I ended up just buying them in the end with I wanted the Republic symbol. That's the Galactic Republic from Star Wars. Monique says, Clinton, my folks mentioned the Cadbury's thing in New Zealand, so I thought it was a cocoa content. You'd know the correct change. Ah, yes, because you're in Australia, weren't you? Yeah, the only drawback is transparency. The ones I had that worked, that I did on the laser cutter, were really thick as well. So they wouldn't have gone well. They just wouldn't have gone as well. So I think that it's probably improved since then. But yeah, if you want to do a white something, you need to have white on your underneath. So Tim says he's got a laser printer, so he's hoping they come out okay. You let me know how it goes, Tim. Pop it on the Discord. Dave says some colours you need to use the solid type, others you need to use the transparent type, but the lighter colours are translucent. Yeah, so if you want to do a yellow or something, it's not great. It's best for putting black on. It says, Polite says, if you've got inkjet decal paper, do not touch the printing surface with bare fingers. The problem was that it just beaded a bit on the surface as it dried, so I ended up with a really patchy looking decals. Davy Jones says, like balsa. That's for cutting. Yeah, mine was veneer. You know, you can buy sheets of veneer. It was thin veneer. And I used it I cut out the slots. I did a samurai droid, and so I'd cut the slots from Star Wars into pieces of wood and put them behind. So yeah, it did work. So I don't know how thick veneer is, but it's not thick. But it is really interesting, and I would use it again. It was good. Every now and then the wood just falls apart. So I did have the wood on a sticky back. I think I used sticky back plastic so that it was held in place. And then when you transfer it, obviously you want to make sure it just transfers across okay. But yeah. Also, give me a marathon any day. I don't like these Snickers. Someone said they were changing their name back, but I don't think they have. Frisk is low tack masking film. Excellent. I knew it. I was thinking it was something to do. Yeah. Okay. That would have been a really good thing for cutting, whereas I used proper masking paper and it just didn't work. Timbersurf, support Kathy's Kickstarter so you can buy more shares in Thornton's. I actually, if Hotel Chocolate hadn't just moved, I'd probably go with Hotel Chocolate because they do some really nice liqueur chocolates. And I used to go to work and I'd change at Moore Street onto New Street to go out to Perry Bar. And at the top of the station in New Street, where I had a 20-minute wait between the two sets of trains, because it wasn't very often up to Perry Bar, there was a Hotel Chocolate at the top of the thing. So I'd walk past it every day. But do support my Kickstarter just so that I can afford to pay my electric bill, because that would be actually more useful. Davy Jones, I was thinking of using the cutter to create a transparent and a white version to put it over. I think that would work really well. That would work if you can get them to line up without pulling the other one up underneath. So Monique says, I'm at my folks' place in New Zealand at the moment. Better runs they're waiting. Have a great week. Have a great one too. See you soon. James, every now and then the wood just falls apart. Modelling by Bodley Tyler. If you know. Yeah, I won't sing. You'll be grateful. Right, we're at the end of chat. So, I think I've talked about masking. Anyone got any other questions they want to put in chat? Because I know I normally get some really, really good questions. And, so if you've got a question for me. Otherwise, I do have something else I wanted to talk to you about. Now, if you're a Star Wars fan, you may or may not be watching The Bad Batch. But basically, it's a continuation of the Clone Wars, which is my favourite Star Wars. And it's a cartoon, let's call it that. And it's got a bunch of clones who are different. That's, by the by, actually quite irrelevant. I've got some Bad Batch figures that I printed. They're 35mm, so they're about that big. And I've painted everything bar... Well, I painted like 80% of it. I haven't done the white yet. And there's a lot of like little fiddly skulls and 99s, because they were Clone Force 99 at the time to put on. And I'm doing them in their original black and red Clone Force 99 sort of thing. So it's like blacks, reds and whites, everything. Very scuffed, very animated look. And I've got a load of these figures. So there's 5 of them. It's pre-Omega or Omega. So it's 5 of them. And for most of them for all of them I've got 3. For some of them I've got 5. So what I'm thinking of doing is a batch of different dioramas. I've also got their spaceship. So the first video, which would have gone up this week if I could be bothered to get on with it, but didn't, I did the sled instead. So the first one is probably going to be with the spaceship, and it's got the 5 of them casual. Then I've got the rest of them kind of like, Wrecker in his thing and Crosshair and, all this sort of stuff. And I want to know what bases people would be interested in seeing for a set of scenery dioramas. So they're basically going to then be 3 figures in a bit of scenery. And I'll probably put them on a picture frame. So I was thinking of doing maybe one of them with them waist deep, maybe, because I can actually probably cut them off. Maybe, I don't know if I want to cut them. I just spent ages painting their legs. Anyway, I could put them walking, maybe, they've got quite long legs, knee deep in a swamp. So I'm going to do a swamp. I've got a swamp over here. Pointing is, there we go, the angle. So I was thinking a swamp. The ship will probably be parked on a dirt surface, and there'll be some like char marks. I haven't painted the ship yet. So the first one will be painting the people. Then each one after that will be a diorama. So we've got one with the ship, them looking casual. And then there's at least probably 4 other dioramas, some of which may have 5 figures in, some of which will maybe only have 2 figures in. And I could do more than that. So any ideas what people would like to see for scenery that I would do that will basically be there with 2 or 3 figures on? I mean, I could put I've got some 3D printed stuff from Hokusa for the Shadow Planet and it's basically a couple of Star Wars style planets. And I was thinking of 3D printing maybe a couple of doing in a weird alien planet full of plants for maybe one. But yeah, any ideas? Put them in chat. Back to chat. Richard C, is that tea or coffee? This is tea. And it's not even British tea, it's like Chinese pearl jasmine tea, which is what I drink. I don't drink coffee. I've never drunk anything with milk in, ever. So no normal tea, don't like Indian tea. I like Chinese tea though, because it's mostly just water at this point of the day. Davy Jones, well, if you're a Star Wars fan right now, you're probably committing suicide. Why? Bad Batch is brilliant. Apparently the Acolyte is great. I was chatting to a cameraman on it, and he was saying it's got great reviews from the people who've watched it. Ahsoka wasn't great, but I'm very happy generally with sort of the Bad Batch. It's been really good. So no, I'm not. I think people. I read this article. Nobody hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans, and I have to agree with that. It was just, George Lucas ruined Star Wars. Sort of was like one of the lines, and Star Wars fans hate George Lucas, but they love George Lucas because George Lucas created Star Wars, but they hate what he's done with the prequels, and and all I ever hear is people moaning about it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. I didn't like Ahsoka because she's my favourite character, and I thought the TV series did her a dirty. She wasn't even in half of it. Sabine had probably 5 minutes less runtime in total if someone had actually added it up. And some of the, I'm just a bit, I kind of want them not all to be connected. But apart from that, I'm loving the Bad Batch. Really want to know what happens with Rex and Cody. Captain Rex, Ahsoka, probably my 2 favourite characters. Huge Obi-Wan fan, obviously. I liked Kenobi. I didn't like Andor. Too slow, too boring, really. But I'll watch it. I'm really looking forward to the Acolyte and moving into the High Republic. It's an era I really like. Loved Fallen Order and Survivor. They were brilliant. Absolutely adored them. So no, I think Star Wars is great. People love to hate Disney, but it's not in as bad a place as Marvel. Marvel seems to be really struggling. But anyway, that's it. So no, I'm not. I'm very happy with what's on TV at the moment. My only complaint is it's a long time till the next thing. But there we go. I'm thinking of going back and trying KOTOR again. I really struggled the first time I did it. It's Knights of the Old Republic. It's a really old game. It's like D&D, and I just couldn't even get through the first door. But I'm playing Republic Commando, which has been fun. So back to chat. James Beck's question: masking techniques for painting to prevent ridges at the edge of the tape line when multi-coating. That's a really good question, actually. I probably should have mentioned it because I had that problem with my Titanfall helmet. So I painted with frog tape and spray cans, and I was a little heavy-handed because I sprayed the base coat white. Then I put the masking tape down and I sprayed another white coat so it wouldn't leak. Then I sprayed orange, and then I put more masking tape on to mask the orange areas, and then I sprayed green. So by the time I'd been through all of this, I actually had 4 or 5 coats on the masking tape, and there is a ridge. You know what I did? I got some 1000 grit sandpaper and I just sanded the ridge down. Because it's a battered, weathered helmet, it copes. But yeah, I sanded a lot of the ridges down to get rid of them. I think the answer is, on models, not a problem, because airbrushes that I use, I put on really thin coats. I couldn't put a thick coat on if I wanted because it would run. But with rattle cans, I've struggled. And I think the answer on rattle cans is probably get a fine sandpaper. I'm using proper modelling sponge, small little, the Spy sanding sponges, and sand the edge off. That's what I did anyway. James says with single coating one can peel off the masking tape while the paint's still tacky. You still get the edge a bit though, even then. And Woolsec says clear coat gets rid of the lines. Oh no, mine was thick enough that the clear coat didn't. But I have actually got a coat of clear, and there'll be another couple of coats of clear going over the top as well. Because if you're doing decals, you have to have a gloss. So at the moment, it's got a gloss clear coat on the whole helmet. But I then want it to go matte. So once the decals are on, I'm then spraying it matte. So by the time I'm done, some of the areas will have 5 or 6 coats of primer and spray putty and sanded. So some of them will be practically bare plastic. Some will be mostly primer. And then they've got a white, an orange, a green, gloss, and then a matte coat. So some of them are getting really quite thick by the end of that. So yeah. So backgrounds for dioramas, a branch of Debenhams in the 1990s. Yeah. The Bad Batch in Star Wars, it's a galaxy far, far away. But yeah, David Jones, I can't remember the name now, but isn't there a swamp planet in the Clone Wars somewhere? Yeah, that's Dagobah. But I mean, I'm not even going to say what planet it is. I'm just going to go and say it's Swamp One, because Clone Force 99 thankfully did most of their stuff off screen when they were Clone Force 99, and they had all this stuff that they did. So I'm not going to use actual planets. I'm just going to use a bit of fun. But there is Dagobah. Oh, Dave Jones says giant luminescent mushrooms for that diorama. I actually think I'm thinking of printing them in clear resin if they'll fit in that printer, which they probably will, because I've got clear in one and dark in the other. The bigger one's got the dark in, and then lighting them. So that is definitely something I was thinking about. Davy Jones, well, that's the thing. Disney is going out of business because of how badly they treated IPs instead of Star Wars. I'm not going to get into Disney going, but I'm not unhappy with Disney Star Wars. I really am not. I got into Star Wars in the Disney era. I didn't like Star Wars back in the day. I've grown to love it a lot more, but the thing that got me back into it was Disney Mandalorian. and then the Clone Wars, which isn't Disney. But the final season was Disney, and I started to watch the Clone Wars when the final season came on Disney Plus, which I bought just to watch The Mandalorian. So for me, Disney and Star Wars is what I love. So I don't have the problem, and I'm not getting into people's hate of Disney. The sequels weren't great, but I think you'll find in 30 years' time, the kids that grew up with the sequels will love them. And suddenly, like the prequels, 25 years old, people now love the prequels. Frankly, I'm a bit stuck on Revenge of the Sith audio book because it's like listening to an M&S ad. This isn't just Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Master, Sarisu, Master of the Force, Jedi, Master, extraordinaire, negotiator, General of the Third System Armies, the most coveted, High Council, and it's like, if you don't know what an M&S ad is, I'm sorry, but this isn't just any old chocolate. This is an M&S chocolate. And they just list everything up. And actually, I do find that the book is like that, and I'm really struggling because it is really, really much. John, going back to Bad Batch, how about the farm from season 1 for them in casual mode? I like that. That's but the trouble is Crosshair's not in that. That's after they've left Crosshair. So I think what I'm going to do, because I want to put Crosshair in it, is actually go pre the Bad Batch series and do them as Clone Force 99, so I can do whatever I like. But that's Seleucami. I'm so sad I know that. I know that because I've done bases from it already. But that's Seleucami, and that's Cut Decane, isn't it, that farm? Yeah, that would be cool, but they're actually not in the same, because I've got them in, the casual mode is not casual armour, it's just like I'm standing there looking cool with my helmet off rather than my helmet's on and I'm looking like I've got my knives out. So Davy Jones says, I've seen people score lines with a knife before pulling the tape off. I would have thought that might just scratch your paint. So that would be interesting. I didn't have any problem getting my paint off. It came off beautifully, and it had been on for weeks, the lower coat, by the time I did it all. So yeah, it didn't have a problem getting it off. I do have a little bit where it looks a bit sort of bitty, and that's because it was frog tape, and the edge of frog tape isn't smooth like Tamiya. You do get a little bit more of a kind of look on it. So yeah, there we go. So James says, that's interesting, useful to know. Thin coats where possible, brushing and airbrushes can do thin coats, rattle cans do thick coats, can sand ridges. That sums it up, yeah. No, not Dagobah. Yeah, Davey, I'm just like, I'm just going to do it on Clone Force 99, and I might just call it Plan 3, Plan 6, Plan 8, because they've always got their plans. Peter, people always complain and watch it for the 12th time. I watched the Clone Wars 3 times in a year when I first watched it. I watched it once, and then I watched it again, and then we watched it in timeline order. And I want to watch it again, just because I love it so much. But there we go. At the moment we're doing Poirot because my dad's visiting, and he likes Poirot. So we're doing all the Poirots from beginning to end. We're in season 4 at the moment. Digger, that swamp is fantastic. A lot of work went into that one. Yeah, that was really cool. And I do remember it had a few moments, but it was about 6 months. But it was a lot of live streams, and I'm just struggling with that time at the moment. I'm really struggling to do the modelling and do designing. Davy Jones, in the prequels with the ATST and that giant mantis-like monsters. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could do it on Naboo even. Seen some good lighted mushrooms done with hot glue. It's an interesting one. I probably would 3D print them because I'm lazy and it's already designed, and Hoku's has done them and I bought them. Ah, you mean the second movie, The Clone Wars. I didn't know there was a ATST and the giant mantis-like monsters in the second movie, Attack of the Clones. I thought that was mostly on Camino, Coruscant, Geonosis. Okay, right. Richard, I've stopped watching 2 since they went to Disney. You're missing out then, because the Bad Batch is excellent and that's Disney. Felucia, yes. I think his one of the planets that I have, I think, is Felucia, the planet's for. So yeah, that's cool. Weird plants and giant mushrooms and stuff. Yeah, I've got his. He's got Mushroom Planet and Shadow Planet, and the Shadow Planet's Umbara. So the Umbara arc is practically one of the best arcs in, apart from the last arc, in the Clone Wars. It's very moving and very, very tense, and yeah, you kind of, it's very dark. And actually, I watched the Clone Wars knowing Umbara and the end of season 7 is coming, and it's like foreshadowing the whole way through. David Jones, maybe I was thinking of a video game. Yeah, I get very confused. I didn't play the Star Wars video games when I was younger. I have played Fallen Order and Survivor, and if anybody wants to, you know, play Star Wars now, I'd recommend them because they're really cool. I love Respawn, the game, so company that did them. So, a Felucia scene. Right, we'll definitely do Felucia. So, if I've got 5, I've got the ship, I've got Felucia, and I'll set the plants to print in a minute. Well, not tonight, but, you know, tomorrow or something. I think some of them need supporting, which is why I just didn't do them. And when I run out of the coloured resin, it's going to go to clear in that one as well, so I just have the one resin. And I don't mind printing in clear. I have to up the times quite a bit because I'm printing blue at the moment, Ceratec blue. But it seems to be coming out. These have been around for ages. I printed them ages ago, and I dropped a piece of terrain on some of them and then had to reprint. But they were sprayed black, so I just weathered them up from black. So yeah, Felucia, a swamp. I think the sort of grassy landing pad out in the open for the ship. So that's 3. Just trying to think what other ones I could do. I have all this scenery material and I never use it now because everything's 3D printed. And when you're showing stuff off for a Kickstarter, which is where 90% of my modelling goes, you don't want to use stuff that people have to buy to show it off. It's just not what Kickstarter modeling's about. And I just don't get around to doing things like that one anymore. So I miss it. I really do. I spent all my afternoons one week painting the Bad Batch. And I have painted, I don't know, 20 figures. So yeah. Snow. Right. Yes, I have so much snow stuff. Snow, swamp, Felucia, and snow, swamp, Felucia, the ship, which is the one I'm holding my helmet, and then and other. We're getting there. That's good. I could actually just do a different set of plants, couldn't I, and paint them differently. I've got some neon colours, and I was thinking of doing the Felucia ones in neon. But what I could do is just not prime them and just spray them with some interesting colours, like the fluorescence. I'm not sure I've got pink fluorescence, I've got loads of yellows and oranges, and spray them just very thinly with it. So when it glows, it kind of glows through the neon colour. Ooh, that'd be fun. I do like that idea, and spray painting's quick. So, what time is it? Oh, half an hour. So that dealt with that. Other things that I suggest desert, but I guess everybody and his uncle have done that. Yeah, certainly for Tatooine. And the pod races are set on Tatooine, so they'll be doing that anyway soon. Tim is prospecting for snow in France in a couple of weeks, he says, and that's with 2 planks when I asked him. Tim says mask I'll discuss. I did talk about masking fluid at the beginning. I've had a mixed bag with it. I put it on, and it's basically like a rubber cement, and you put it on with a cocktail stick or a small brush or something that you don't mind losing, so I use those mini brushes. You put it on, it sticks there, and then at the end you can just pull it off. I find it really useful if you're doing peeling paint to catch the edges of, say, planks on a shiplap type building, because you can just put a little bit along the edge. I mean, I use Mr. Masking by, it's Mr. Hobby. I use Mr. Masking as well, which is green. Maskol is purple. I think my purple dried up, which is why I've got the other one. And so it's really useful because it will stick on, you'll spray it, and then you'll rub it off, and it's like copy decks, if you remember that from your youths. It is really useful. I find for big areas it starts to pull itself off as you're trying to put it on. I haven't found it successful for big areas, but for small areas I found it really useful. So Davy Jones says he's done tank and snow once. It's very satisfying. I do like snow. Done quite a lot of snow and ice. How about the big worm in the asteroid in episode 4? That's thankfully out of my time period. I stick to the Clone Wars era just to keep everything cheap, because once I actually have a Millennium Falcon to do that scene that I got as an advent calendar one year, and I may well do it, but I put it together before I put any lights in it, so I'd have to lever it apart. But it was on the list for doing for YouTube, but just never got done. And don't expect these to be quick, because pretty soon doing a Kickstarter is a full-time thing, and then at weekends I sometimes do things like video games instead. So yeah. Richard was just watching The Martian, so a desert scene like Mars. Just a thought. Very red. That would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah, big worms make me think of June, says Tim Williams. I tell you one that I really liked was Crate. And if you don't like the sequels, you won't like it because it's the sequels. But what I really loved was the stark imagery of the red and the white. So Crate is got red underneath and it's got salt on top, so it's white. And when the speeders and stuff go over it, they get rid of the salt and there's this bright red underneath. And it looks visually really stunning. I just really liked that. John says, get the book, it's even better than the film. Okay. So, A Corner of the Big Gladiator Arena in episode 2. Ah, Davey, that is an interesting one. So I'm with my personality tutors with, he suggested that this time we do a similar project and I'd run through how I'd do it with him. So I think I suggested that scene because Hocker does all the animals from it and I own the animals and you can buy the, people riding the various different things and do the scene with them. So I suggested that, but I also suggested the Utapau scene with what's it called? Boga, is it? The Varactyl, where Kenobi's riding the Varactyl and Grievous has got the sort of the bike that's like a big circle. And I had those models anyway and they're not expensive. So we're doing that one instead. But yeah, that will come because I'm doing it with him at some point this year. Tremors. Oh, Tremors 1, Tremors 2, Tremors 3, Tremors 4. Good things. Right, I feel like we should talk a bit more modelling for the rest of the time. So is there any modelling questions people have rather than asking me about chocolate? It's honestly, I thought I could talk about masking for an hour, but obviously I didn't quite talk about it as much as I would normally. Anything else on masking? Yeah, it's a bit of a niche subject. Decaling we could do, probably would take about as long as masking because it's not something I do a huge amount of. But if anyone's got any ideas for future live streams or things they particularly want to do, then let me know. What I can do in a live stream is go into far more detail and then it comes out as an 8-minute video, an 8-minute video or something on YouTube as a sort of short thing for everybody who doesn't want to spend 2 hours listening to me waffle on about chocolate when they really want to know my modelling. I think I've seen 3 Tremors movies. I'm not sure I've seen more than that. And it was a long time ago, a very long time ago. But yeah, no, they're good. You're definitely not alone. Timbersurf says, wire trees, my nemesis. I did do a video for my patrons on wire trees. I would say, Timber, just talking about them generally now, I have done wire trees and my biggest problem is always they end up spindly and they just end up too stretched out. So what I've started to do, definitely what I've started to do with wire trees is fold them in half a lot more and do the trunk as a separate piece and make the branches out of pieces that are sort of folded back so they've got twice as many and then stick them into the trunk. I actually even did a 3D print trunk once to avoid having to work out how to get rid of the twisted wire look. But I just find by the time you've got a handful of wire and you've twisted it, they were getting really leggy. But yeah, it's all stuff I've done loads and loads of times. So Tom says, what would be the masking tape widths to start with? I'm only working N-gauge. Really, it's what are you painting in N-gauge? I use a lot of 4mm, 3/4mm, which is quite easy to use. But if I want something finer, I'd put 2 pieces next to each other and spray the gap. You need to think when you're masking of the paint order. So on my helmet, I had white, orange and green, and I didn't want to spray the orange over the green. I wanted to spray it over the white. So I chose to spray the white first, mask the white off, which was just really the edges and a few highlights, spray the orange, mask the orange off, and then spray the green. in reality, the way it would have been sprayed on the helmet was the green was the base coat, and then they would have sprayed orange and white separately. So I should have perhaps done it the other way around. So it really just comes down to what are you painting as to how big they are. So Davey knows a good trick for wire trees. That's cool. Polite, about masking, people do also use bare metal foil for more delicate surfaces. As a mask, or I mean, I've got bare metal foil. I've never used it. I bought a packet once to do foil, but I didn't realise you could use it as a mask. Now that's interesting. Yeah. So apparently there's 6 Tremors movies. We've moved off chocolate to Tremors. And he uses a homemade mix of crackle paste for the bark. I didn't know there was a series as well about Tremors. I use all sorts of... you learn all sorts on here, don't you? For the bark, I've just started to use sawdust in rubber or sawdust in glue or whatever now for the bark, because it's kind of one of the easiest things to do. But yeah, I mean, crackle paste is great. I've got loads and most of them have gone off now, but I've never thought to use it on a tree really. So it sounds interesting, and you're saying with Davey's saying with a little bit of experiment you get some incredibly gnarly results. So yeah, crackle paste could really work well. So Tim says 3D printed armatures is the answer, but designing them would take ages. Yes, but I've got better at doing textures. I would do the armature quite quickly and then just use a brush to add the bark texture, and I'd get a seamless bark texture off the internet probably and create a seamless one. So yeah, that's how I did it last time, and it worked all right. Hi Jake, the Haunted Railway 1820. Nice to see you here. Davey, I used to twist wire and add bolt to the branches with some glue and cornstarch or something like that. So Jaw, Thunderbirds are still a no-go. Well, it's still on the side. This is more about time. So I've been really drifting a bit the last month with my current Kickstarter live and not really wanting to start the new one until that one had finished. And more just that I started the Thunderbirds again at one point, but I'm just not doing a lot of modelling. It's sad. I've got a workshop, it looks beautiful, and I've spent less time up there just because most of my time is front of the computer. And actually, you probably don't realise how much graphics and marketing Kickstarters take. So you end up spending half your day just putting updates up and putting social media posts set up and all that kind of stuff. So you can end up with an awful lot of sort of time disappearing. Just getting all your files ready to print, everything checked. So it isn't a no-go, it's just not at the moment. And I just struggle. I was hoping by doing Kickstarters, I could do 3 a year and then maybe have a few months off where I could get my modelling sorted and just get into it. But what I found is that I'm not making enough money on them to just do 3. So I probably need to be doing 5 or 6 a year at the current amount to kind of get through. So yeah, Thunderbirds is coming, but it will take time. And also, any modelling that I do at the moment, 99% of it has been advertising for Kickstarter type models or just painting them up. So this will get painted before anything else because I need it for the Kickstarter. And that is the sad reality of a full-time modelling job that is designing rather than modelling. And I just didn't make enough money on doing the modelling for it to be viable. So it's not that it's not there. I've had to scale back my expectations. I had a whole discussion on the size of it. It was a live stream. Is it too big? And it was too big. So I've scaled it back, but I just haven't got there yet. So David Jones says he makes his own crackle mix. And I've had loads of great crackle paints, but it's gesso primer and cornstarch and a drop of soap. So yeah. Thunderbirds are red, says Timber. And Davey thought that the Thunderbirds are still a no-go. So they are go. They just go later this year probably. And later this year I'll be doing another Kickstarter. The other thing is, I don't know. I guess I've spent, since I started full-time being content creation and doing this, I spent since March 2020, and we're now in 24, with hardly any holiday, hardly any time off, working 7 days a week, working all day and all evening, and I'm just kind of hitting that wall of I need to just stop for a bit. But I've actually already started my next Kickstarter. So I've just been, instead of stopping and having a proper break like you should, I just drift at a sort of lower efficiency or effectiveness than I normally would. So yeah, but once I get the questions on this, which has been about, everyone's been kind of not happy with the flight stands. So that's the main comment I've had has been about flight stands. Once I get that sorted and I fix why those wings aren't printing properly, because then they're steeper than 45, so they should print. I'm not quite sure why they're having a problem. Once I get all that fixed, you know, I need to do one of these a week to get it out. And I only did a sled last week, but I did a lot of other thoughts and thinks and thinking about things. So yeah, anyway, a lot of waffling about the fact that I'm just kind of probably having a bit of a burnout and stopped for a bit. So I did the Bad Batch, which had been printed a long time ago, just because it's on at the moment and I wanted to get it out whilst it was on. I think it's on until May. So if I could at least get a couple of videos that tie into the only Star Wars that's currently on TV, great as it is, then that would be fine. Hi Flymo Chairman, so welcome aboard. We've got a quarter of an hour left. So yeah, but I think burnout is a real thing, and every now and then, when it's your job, you can't just go, oh, I'm just going to not model this week. And I guess because I've always got more enthusiasm for the design part of a project, now I design almost all the time. I said for the last spaceport, I'll paint as I go and I won't leave it all to the end. I still left it all to the end. I'm just awful. I always leave it to the end. But with these, because they're all going to be painted slightly differently, colours and stuff, I probably will try and paint them as I go. But I probably will paint the resin versions, not the FDM versions, because I just think it'll be easier with the resin versions to get them looking good. I think the FDM versions, I'd be worried about them being filled and stuff. So I probably will just leave them in space grey and painted to check, because I print everything to check it prints, sort out this sled issue, sort out make everything a little bit longer, sort out the flight stands. I still need to do the base. As you can tell, this base is just a stand-in base. So I need to sort a basic sand texture base for them all to go in. And then once that's done, yeah, it should be there. Future ones will be, yeah, I mean, it's fairly, you know, it's fairly solid. I mean, I wouldn't drop it too many times. There we go. But probably worth saying, I also need to model with this some terrain. So I am thinking that when this goes live, I'm wondering about doing just a curve through Beggars Canyon. You see it in the Mando and you see it in the Phantom Menace. And I've done one already, a section of it for a diorama. So, you know, I'm thinking of doing that curve round just as a scene or something, you know, for people to do with the diorama. Cymru Wales, beautiful art behind you. Thank you. A lot of it I've got in China and stuff like that, but a lot of it's just bought in the UK, pictures and things. Digger, does enthusiasm for modelling and designing change at all once it becomes a full-time job? Someone asked Adam Savage about should I make my hobby my full-time job, and he said as soon as you're required to do anything and repeat doing it, it ceases to be a hobby and is a job, and it ceases to have the same engagement with you. So for me, I love designing stuff. That has always been the thing, and I realised, and one of the reasons I went into 3D print design was actually it's always been the designing that I've loved. I hate video editing. I wrote a book, not a great fan of writing another book, but I love designing stuff. I always would rather have spent a day at the computer than a day at the workbench. It's just probably the way I'm built. I spent years as an accountant. I love it. So I would model all day and model all evening, and I was doing more scimitar of an evening, and I've got the legs left to do, the front legs left to do, and you know, make them in and outable. And that's about it really on it. And then make it printable, which was starting to go until I realised I've forgotten to do the legs. But yeah, it's funny. So for the first 3 Kickstarters, massive hours in, absolutely loved doing them. And then this one didn't go well, and I kind of hit a bit of a dump in February. So I just haven't really done much this year, this side of Christmas, as I did like before. So I think it's just drifting now. But I need to just get my act together really, because a job's a job and you just have to do it. And I do love designing, and I'm very blessed to be able to sit here and spend my day doing stuff that I love. But what I've struggled a bit with this, if I just took you through, I'd already done this one. Now this side is easy. It's a cylinder, it's rounded off at the ends, there's loads of different layers, there's little ridges that come up, and then there's some cables in the middle. I remember doing it, it took a while, but it didn't take me forever. You know, a lot of it is because I was looking at the picture, trying to make sure it matched the picture. Getting this slope down through here, getting all this working and looking good and smooth and working out what I wanted to do, that was hard work. And one of the reasons, and it's still not printing amazingly well in places, but one of the reasons is very much curved things are harder. And a lot of what I've been doing so far is buildings. And I did more scimitar, as I said, and I had sub D on, so I had subdivision surface modifier on it, which smooths stuff out. So then you spend a lot of time working out that where you put points, they're going to end up smoothed out and moved in the actual model. And it slows everything down quite a bit. So it has been an interestingly difficult time just to get my head around how I want to model overlapping layers of them. And I was talking about, as I said at the beginning, with just the reference photos, because this one's really small, and trying to work out what I want to do. And I don't want to be too close, but yeah, so I had to get my head around it. So I've really just faffed this week and last week and the week before. I've faffed a lot. I haven't done a lot of modelling. So I do need to get I still love it. I still love the fact that I can do this for an almost living. Could do with a bit more money, but I can do it for an almost living. And actually, my mini factory sales are starting to ramp up as I have more models on there, and people buy things on their sales. I've got a Gumroad shop that it's live now, but it's my birthday this week, and I was thinking of doing a birthday opening sale on it. So you can get all my models on Gumroad as well if you don't want to do my mini factory. So that's just another place for them. So that's what I did a week or so ago. I got everything loaded onto Gumroad. So, there's a lot of other stuff, but yeah, I just need to knuckle down a bit and drift. I need to get to bed earlier. That's my problem. Anyway, there we go. So does my enthusiasm for modelling and designing change? My enthusiasm for designing hasn't changed, but modelling gets squeezed. And my enthusiasm for doing YouTube videos filling my spare time is probably what has changed, because I've been full-time modelling now for 4 years. So to want to do it in my spare time as well as designing as a full-time job, that's what's changed. Because before I used to do my YouTube video as a different thing. I would design of an evening, I would be an accountant in the day, and I would model at the weekend. Now I'm designing all day and I'm designing in the evening, but I don't really feel like modelling at the weekend as much. So that's what's changed. Davey, definitely a great excuse to do loads of rocks. True, I haven't done much rocks, but actually, I mean, I've done them. I did lava rocks. They just take time once you get too many. They get too much. Once they get too big, you get too much detail on them. They take a bit of a time. But yeah, just a process. Tim, a quick plug. Right, yeah. My Port de Norwich layout, which you will all remember hopefully, will be at Statfold Barn near Tamworth, just up the road from me. Model show 13th, 14th of April. It will be on display there if you want to go and see it. I actually feature a little mini me, because you can buy mini me from what are they called? It's late. Model U. That's it. You can get little mini me's from Model U. Richard, are you still doing your model railway layout? No, I got rid of it a couple of years ago now. I did building work So I cleared out my loft. I did Port de Norwich downstairs, and I got Tim bought that one off me last year. And because I'm now designing, people asked, why don't you design railways? I get that question a lot. It's like, someone said to me the other day, well, people by us really would love to have the correct Swedish lamppost. And I'm like, and that's the trouble. They want the correct Swedish lamppost for the time that they want in the location that they want. So my market is 12 people that want the correct Swedish lamppost. And if I've got one rivet wrong, then they won't want to buy my Swedish lamppost. Whereas if I do a sci-fi whatever, it just has to appeal to a wider market. And yeah, so it's about where the market is. And I don't think model railways, I couldn't see where I wanted to fit in the market in it. And so because all my day job is designing sci-fi, all my modelling then ends up as sci-fi because it fits with it better. But Tim is getting involved with his 12-inch to the foot railways. Barlow Lake he's heavily involved with, so yeah. But you got your incline laid recently, and you did that little bridge thing over the slope. If you want to know what he's up to, he always puts it on the Discord under WIP, so you can go and have a look at it. So yeah, I'm not saying I won't do railways again, but I did them for 20 years, which is the longest I've ever done a hobby. So yeah, over 20 years. And I kind of burnt out on the politics before I burnt out on the modelling. And I've always done sci-fi. I mean, I look around here and some of these are 15, 16-year-old models, my sci-fi ones. I've always kind of mixed it in. It's just over the years it's gone more heavily towards sci-fi. And I think because I was best known for my railways, people assumed that that was the only thing I modelled, whereas I have always done. And this is probably my ones. If I look, I've got a bordello, sci-fi, a cinema, handrail, handcart hut, swamp hut, halo, Transformers down there, another my old house. So if you look at the modelling that I've got on dioramas, it's not railway. It was, and also because of big model railway layout, I'd done a bit of everything once, and I felt like everything that I was going to do in the future was just more of the same. That's the trouble with a middle-sized layout. It's just more of the same, just more and more of the same. And to me, the joy is in doing something new. So for each of my Kickstarters, I can do something new. I've done modular landing pads, I've done lava, that was fun, and I've done spaceport. My next one's pod races. I can do something new, I can learn a new skill. I could, for each of them, learn something new, like how to do better renders, or how to do a battle mat, or I can add new things in every time. Quix is doing a game, so there's a lot of excitement about that. So I can add in new things, and that's what I need to keep me going. I have designed 50 times more dioramas and bought the stuff for some of them, and 50 times as much stuff. I mean, I've got a whole orrery calculation to do every single planet revolving around the sun on an orrery with mechanical gears to know what size the gears are and how many teeth and cogs and everything. I did all that once, half built an orrery and it warped, so I kind of stopped. So yeah, the answer for me is I like doing new things, and I felt like I'd reached where I wanted to in model railways. But not scenery, just in model railways. Oh, Timber's put my Discord up again. Thank you very much, Timber. David Jones says, trains, thinking Mustafar. Yeah, I did the lava Kickstarter last year, so I've done all the Mustafar scenery. It was fun. And then we've only got a couple of minutes yet, and Timber is reminding people to bash the like button. So please do that. Now, I haven't thought what I am doing next time. I still haven't thought about it. This one I kind of knew I was doing painting still. So if you've got any ideas of what you would like to talk about in a live stream, I've mentioned, people have said, oh, you could do wire trees, or you can do stuff like that. And I've done some of them in the past for my patrons. So I have videos that's not been out there. I can pull stuff off when I've done other trees and we could talk about them. So if you want to do a sort of vegetation theme, perhaps start looking at grass, tree, bushes, then trees. I've certainly done stuff around those in the past. I can put out there and talk it through. So if people are happy with that, I'd probably start with trees, because I normally start with grass, so I'd probably start with trees or something. If people are happy with that, just say yes, drop me a note, chat to me on Discord. You can drop me an Instagram or Facebook message. Never do it to my personal Facebook, because I don't really look at that or answer that. Norm's on my personal Facebook, so some people have friended me on there and I do check it daily. But, you know, I generally go through my page for messages, so you'll get more luck through that. And then, you know, just tell me that you fancy something. But otherwise, perhaps we'll do trees next time. I've done a lot of different types of trees over the years. I mean, I've written a whole book with a chapter on trees, and I probably may then think about splitting it up. We'll think, because I don't want to run out of stuff to talk or waffle. But actually, you know, that's what I do. We talk about chocolate and biscuits and the fact I don't like cake as much, and I still like Disney, Star Wars. It's all good. Right, well, I think we're at the end. No, 58. So let me just check chat. Norm says, enjoy your birthday. Thank you very much. Thanks to my moderators, Norm, Timber and Digger. So, yeah, thank you. I do appreciate them. I know a lot of people, it's generally a very well-behaved chat, but thank you for them for always turning up and doing stuff. And I will see everybody in a month's time. Gosh, it will fly past, and we'll talk trees. Big trees, little trees, wire trees, conifers. I actually like conifers a lot. They're really good, but generally trees. So see you next time. Thanks for the chat. Take care. Have a great modelling week. Well, great modelling month, and I'll see you next time.